Welcome to Moments with Marianne. I'm so delighted we're spending this time here today. We have a very empowering show coming right up with special guest, Ellen-Meredith, and she's here to share with us her new book, The Language Your Body Speaks, Self-Healing with Energy Medicine. Now, Ellen is an intuitive and energy medicine practitioner with over 35 years of experience. She has served on the faculty of energy medicine pioneer Donna Eden since 2010, and she teaches energy healing techniques all over the world. So let's welcome to the show, Ellen-Meredith.
Thank you, Marianne. I'm very happy to be here.
You know, what an honor it is to have you here and to talk about this book. So I've got to ask you, what inspired you to write this book?
Well, I've been working as a healer for almost 40 years. And, I check into books that are out there. And I realized that almost all the books on healing relate it to medicine and the medical model. And that's not how I think. I really see energy work and healing as a language task, as a communication activity. So I felt like it was time to write my own book and maybe define my own terms for understanding how healing works.
Now, isn't that important? Because it seems like we're in this great period of time where maybe science and spirituality are kind of merging.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I'm always excited when I read an article about how science has discovered something that healers have known for 5,000 years.
Well, that's new, right?
Right. But I also see the other side, that we as healers are learning how to get more focused and use more precise language and understandings based on how science has configured things.
Well, I think there's some importance to that as well, because as science and, spirituality do have this, dovetail kind of merging process that they're going through, I think it's important for people who are very linear to kind of understand, hey, maybe some of this does make sense.
Yes, absolutely. But I also think that we need to be very careful to recognize all the ways that, science is kind of still the state religion here in a way, or I want to call it religion, but it's the predominant belief system of how we understand reality, how we understand how life works and what's going on and why. And we are trained as a culture to turn to that, to say, well, are there studies that prove this? Is there science that has demonstrated this? And what gets lost in that is other ways of knowing. For example, you wouldn't try to interpret Shakespeare using science. I mean, you could, but it wouldn't be the most effective way to understand the meaning and impact and import of a poem.
Yeah, they could be there for some time if that was going to happen, right?
Right. And it undercuts the power of what language has to offer us. We really live our lives more in language than we do in science. I mean, for all that, we talk about science a lot with our trained minds. Everything we do is couched in language. We can understand our experience because we encode it or embody it with words and with language. So it is really important to maybe shift the paradigm for self-healing. Now, I'm happy to have the scientists working on cures for various illnesses and diseases and all that. I'm grateful to them. But that doesn't help me as a self-healer. Even if I'm trained in chemistry, it doesn't help me. What helps me is learning how to communicate with my body, mind, and spirit, sort of creating an operational way of helping my body to shift and to function and to thrive on a day-by-day basis. And I think the tools for that come from the language of energy, which is the basic language your body speaks.
Mm-hmm. Without a doubt. I mean, it's interesting. I mean, you start your book off right with thinking outside the box about healing. And I have to,
Yes.
I'm just kind of curious, why was that the first thing that you wanted to start with?
Well, I think that we always are trained to think in whatever cultural or social framework is predominant around us. And I think that if we have to reference everything we do to help ourselves back to medicine, and we have to rationalize it in scientific terms, we stop ourselves from some of our greatest gifts. And in that chapter, I go through some of the myths that we get from science and from medicine that maybe don't apply to self-healing. And one of them is that objective truth is sort of more real than subjective truth. And if we aren't able to sort of see ourselves as the subject of our own experiences, if I can't listen to my own experience and respond to it because it hasn't been validated scientifically in a study, then I'm missing a whole lot of the communications that can get me to a very effective response or self-treatment. And I don't think of it as in medical treatment, but how do I treat myself? That comes from a dialogue that I have with my own energies, and it sits outside the predominant model of what the values are in our medical scientific model.
Well, and you touched on something that I'd like to dive into here a moment. You talked about the energy of our bodies. And,
yes.
and in your book, you really talk about how this is a language. I'd love for you to share your insights with our listeners on this.
Okay. I don't use the term language metaphorically in the book. It is literally how the body, energy is literally how the body communicates with itself. We basically have two inbuilt communication systems. The body communicates with chemistry, and it communicates with energetic signaling. And our science, our medicine is often rooted in trying to understand the chemical messaging of the body. But I believe that the energy signaling underlies that, the subtle energies of the body. And, your listeners may have heard of aura or meridians or other energy systems that have been documented in various healing modalities. And those are codifications of this language that the body uses. And it's not neutral. It's not like there's these little electrons and neutrons. I mean, we can, science can derive us down to that. But the subtle energies of the body, I think, are almost are part of our consciousness. They're built into the body so it can communicate with itself. And the energetic signaling tells the chemicals what to do. And we all know this. Like, for example, if you fall in love, your body's going to release all these endorphins. And you don't have to think, okay, release endorphins. You don't have to tell the body to do that. There is an interface between the body's energy and energetic communications and the chemistry. And so the energy is not just, signaling. It is a whole web of meaning that we construct as we construct ourselves. And it's a very rich place to work, just as poetry is a rich way to work with language.
I really appreciate you going over that. And it really makes sense when you think about how our bodies are communicating with us. It gives us a way to be able to listen to what's actually happening.
Right. And one thing that I think is really significant to think about is that the body doesn't just tell us what's wrong. It tells us what is needed, what we need in order to thrive. So if we're always looking at our body with a medical model of what's wrong and how can I fix it, we're missing a whole bunch of vital communications about what's needed so that I can thrive and have a fabulous life. And often, even when we have an illness that is clearly something going wrong with the body, within those signals of what's wrong are some signals about what we need in order to get right again. And in doing that, you can often heal some pretty severe physical medical ailments.
So how can people look at this and go, okay, what's going on with me physically? And this is something I need to adjust.
Well, I think that we have to learn the language, we can't always just translate it to English, because the body's not great at speaking English. I mean, if you say, feel better, the body says, oh, she's mad at me. She hears it hears the intention, not the words. Those old, I don't know if you ever saw that cartoon about a dog owner, and the dog owner is going, well, Fido, we're going to have a great day today, blah, blah, blah. And, it has this whole spiel he's giving to Fido. And then you hear the little thing, what Fido hears is, blah, 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 food.
Isn't that true? Because the rest of it could be all Greek,
Right. And so in a way, we need to start thinking of the body's signals in very energetic terms. And so the body speaks with color or visual, imagery. It speaks with sound. It speaks with rhythm, with sensation and touch. I mean, it uses the senses, and then it has some extended senses, such as direct knowing or intuition, or having your attention drawn to something, or recognizing a pattern. Those are all kind of the building blocks. And in my book, I talk a lot about, I help people try to give a total immersion experience into the language of energy, so you can remember what you know about it and learn it more consciously. But then when we're talking to the body, it comes down to energetic processes. Do you need release, or do you need more of something? Do you need to stretch, or do you need to tighten? Do you need to move, or do you need to go very still? And it's not all either ors, but we can think in those terms to begin to find energetic responses that are appropriate. So I could give an example of what I'm talking about. I spoke to a young woman last week or a couple weeks ago who was having a real panic and a problem with asthma attacks. And she was having to use her inhaler 12 times a day because she was anxious probably about all the coronavirus stuff that's going on. And she couldn't figure out, she didn't want to keep using her inhaler. And so she said, is there any energy medicine exercise that you can give me to help my lungs stop doing this? And so I took a look at her lungs energetically, and they looked like they were spasming, that they were having this kind of panic attack spasm. So I suggested she put rub her hands together to activate them, and put one hand on each lung, and then with her foot, tap a very slow, calm rhythm. And what I was thinking about is, how do you communicate a different rhythm to lungs, and which are essentially have muscles in them that are spasming? How do you calm and slow that down? So I thought, well, that might be a way to do it. And she immediately said, oh my God, it feels like a defibrillator. It feels like, she said, I've been wanting something that would just shock my lungs into not going into that panic reaction over and over. She said, it feels great. And within the next day or two, she used her lung defibrillator, energy defibrillator, every time she needed it. And she didn't have to use her inhaler. She was down to maybe, I think, 2 usages over 3 or 4 days. And then her lungs were fine after that. She didn't have any more asthma attacks.
Wow, what an amazing story. But, it's good to hear this, because it gives people, I think, a lot of hope, where otherwise they're kind of going, gosh, what do I have to do? I don't want to be on a bunch of meds. I've seen the doctors. They don't know what to do. You
Right.
get this all the time.
Right. And there are times when medicine is exactly what we need, but there's lots of times where doctors say there's nothing I can do for you, or the medicine that they give us, in fact, causes other symptoms that are equally disturbing or problematic. And part of that is because medicine doesn't speak to the body's communication, saying, hey, I'm scared, I'm panicking, I'm freezing up, I'm going into spasms here. And if we can recognize what the energy gesture is that's being spoken to us by the body through the symptoms, we can come up with an appropriate energetic response. And we're speaking the language of energy. We're not visualizing calm, there's nothing wrong with visualization. It's just that most of us aren't powerful enough in our minds to communicate only one message. So we visualize calm while in the back of the mind we're thinking, and if this doesn't work, what am I going to do? Oh my God, my grandma almost died of this, and blah, blah, blah. And so we're communicating all of that to the body, and it's not as pure as gesture, touch, sound, movement, imagery that we can actually look at or embody with a little statue or something. So that's what I'm trying to do, is help my readers learn this language. And most of us know lots of it. We just don't realize we know how to talk in other ways than thought. And then to bring it into a framework of how then do I get into ongoing energy dialogue with my body, so I not only understand what my body is saying, but I really get good at appropriate responses.
I love that. That's so important for people to hear, because then you've got like this roadmap on how to have this communication.
Right. But it is communication. So, and I love the word roadmap. I think that was a good choice, because it isn't a prescriptive, program. It's not 7 steps to wellness, because communication is so personal, and even the vocabulary is personal. If you have a teenager who goes to a concert and comes home and you say, "How was the concert?" They may say, "Oh, it was dope." And you're thinking, stupid? But you're not, because you understand that the word dope in that context means something very specific to that, to your teenager. And our bodies are the same way, that we develop core vocabulary and core ways of communicating. And the more I communicate with my body, the more I understand what it's saying to me, and it understands what I'm trying to communicate.
I know you mentioned also in your book that colors can be a form of communication, which I found really fascinating.
Yes. I mean, if you think of energy as a vibration, colors are one of the ways that our bodies are set up to perceive energetic vibrations. So is sound, so is, all of the other senses. That's our receivers for perceiving energy. So you can use the energy of a color to influence the energy of your body and of your energy field, the environment that surrounds your body, that we call the aura. And the health of the body very much reflects the health of its subtle energies. So anything we do to bring in color that speaks to us in a positive way, we can really shift out some of the unproductive vibrations or energetic expressions that lead the instrument to malfunction, the instrument to falter or get clogged or express its unhappiness in some way or another.
Now, does the body ever get into this position where it just goes by pure instinct and that's it?
Yes, in both a positive and negative way. We have an inbuilt protector that I call the gatekeeper. And it's basically your immune system. It's your physical, energetic, spiritual, and emotional immune system. So your gatekeeper keeps the gates of self. It's a mechanism that's built in. It keeps the gates of self. It says, this is me. This is not me. This can come in. This has to stay out. I will fund the energy here, and I won't fund the energy there. And as we know from fight or flight, and we know that the body can go into reactivity where it's not listening to anything. It's just in a panic, and it's locking everything down, or it's running away, or it's running stress hormones. And so in the book, I talk extensively about how do you calm and befriend your gatekeeper so that you can have productive, energetic conversations with all of your energies. The gatekeeper won't let you in if it isn't feeling safe, if it isn't feeling that it can manage the body's energies properly. So there is kind of a learning curve in figuring out, how do I befriend my gatekeeper so that it trusts me when I bring my consciousness in to participate in figuring out what needs to happen and how to make it happen, and what resources could be brought in safely to make this instrument work better.
So, how does it work with things like fear and stress and just overwhelm?
Okay, I personally think of emotions as energy states, as indication of energy states. And sometimes they cause an energy, and sometimes they're actually a byproduct of an energy. So, for example, if someone's feeling a lot of fear, if they do something to ground their energies really thoroughly in many dimensions, and I offer exercises for how to do all this stuff I'm talking about. If they do that, often the fear dissipates. The fear is not is a message saying, I don't have what I need right now. And often what we need is grounding or anchoring or connection or integrity. Our energy field is being breached in some way, and we need a stronger protection, etc. And overwhelm is often an indication that energies are backed up and need to be cleared or moved. Whereas and depression can be either a clogging or a very, very low energy state where we're below a threshold and we don't have enough positive input to keep our mood up. So that's how I deal with the emotions. It's not to ignore them, but they aren't a thing in themselves. They're part of the language communicating what's happening with energy states.
So, when we look at this as a whole, what are some of the ways that as people start to cultivate their own wellness, what are some of the things that they can start to experience?
Okay, well, one of the things is they'll start seeing chronic symptoms shift and drop away. A chronic symptom is usually a message over and over like, hey, mom, you're not paying attention. I need you to pay attention here. And as we start to work with the energy dialogue and the vital communication, and maybe doing some energy exercises that ground us, or, some of the things I already mentioned, the body starts to calm down. The gatekeeper starts to calm down, and it starts to operate better. It starts to work better and more in harmony with the mind and with the wiser self. And I really believe that we sort of have a three-part self. We have an earth elemental self, which is your creature self or your body. We have a talking self that is the mind that creates plots and identities in this world. And we have the wiser self, which is the soul or the source of us. And it is a little like we have the music, the instrument, and the musician playing the instrument. We have to get those three on the same page so that they work together. And so what happens as you enter into energy dialogue over and over is that your committee of three starts to work better and better. And so your body becomes more expressive of your soul's truth, and your mind starts to align with what your body needs and isn't pushing your body to, go faster, harder, more than it's capable of. And at the same token, as your mind comes up with dreams and ideas and thoughts, your body becomes better able to embody those and manifest them in your everyday life. So what people experience is everything from feeling very grounded, feeling calmer, seeing symptoms start to disappear because the body doesn't need to scream at them anymore, healing chronic illnesses. It can work across the spectrum of body, mind, and spirit to bring well-being, to bring wholeness, to bring health.
Now, can this also be used? I mean, I know, in your book, you talk about this, about how it also allows you to access the guidance system that we have within our body.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I think that is the point, is that as we tune in and start to interact with the body on its own terms, we get better and better at hearing the guidance system, and then we can make choices in alignment with our larger truth. And of course, that always feels better, right? When we're living our soul's truth, it's kind of a happy place. Yeah. So I guess that's all I have to say about that. Just
No worries.
I think of it like being a musician. The more I am friends with my instrument, the more when I go to play a song, it's second nature to me to play that music. I'm not sitting there struggling to think which key do I press or, how hard do I blow? That becomes second nature to this instinct in me to express something.
So, what is a tip that our listeners can take away with them today that will allow them to speak with their body?
Okay. I love I love the way you framed that question, because I think often people think in terms of how do I know what my body's saying to me? And I think that's important, but maybe even more important is just starting with goodwill to communicate with your body. So I would say just start with an exercise that I call healing hands, and it's in the book, where you just rub your hands together to activate the energy centers that are built into the hands, the communication potential of the hands. And then take your left hand and say, okay, where do you want to go? Where are you drawn to go? And just let your hand go where it is drawn to go and place it on your body, preferably the body. It could go in the field, but start with the body because we want the body to get the memo. And then take your other hand and say, where do you want to go? And place it wherever it wants to go. And you just hold those two places, those 2 points, until you feel that one of the hands feels like it wants to move somewhere. You can check in, hey, left hand, you want to stay there or you want to move somewhere else? Your left hand may say, yeah, now I want to move here. And you keep doing that until you feel like you've completed some process or a little communication or conversation. And it takes a while for the conscious mind to catch up to what's being said. Your hands already know how to speak energy. They already are pretty fluent in the language of energy. So they can teach your conscious mind more about how it works. And you just watch the patterns and feel what it feels like when 2 places in your body are connected up. And of course, those connections make a vital link, that it is almost like a jumper cable that allows circuitry that's very unique to your body, your personal self, to build up and get stronger and get activated to serve you. So that's one way that you can just get started, that both teaches you some baseline communications and some baseline perceptions. You'll start to feel things and understand things however your mind best does it. You might get imagery, you might think thoughts, you might hear a song in your head, you might feel sensations in your body, you might just know that something has shifted. And those are all valid ways to receive the communication.
So you really get what you get and you take that. You don't try to overanalyze it or explain it. You just you receive the information you get and then go with it, right?
Right. And afterwards you can sit and think about maybe what you learned from it. My left brain wanted to connect to my stomach for some reason. I wonder what that's about. I don't know, but when I do it, it calms my stomach. So that's some kind of vital connection. And over time, the more you learn about energy and energy medicine, you can begin to learn what certain areas of the body mean to you in terms of, how you process emotion, how you process experience, how you process life, how you process the plot line of your life, etc. So it's just like all language, we learn it through using it.
Well, Ellen, where can our listeners connect with you and be part of your community and learn more about your book?
Okay, well, that's a great question. I have a website, and the address is www.ellen-meredith.com, and that's spelled MEREDITH, the Meredith part. And I also have a YouTube channel, Energy Medicine with Ellen Meredith. And I've just put up a free class, an 8 video class on working to enhance your immune system in this time of pandemic. So maybe some of your listeners would find that helpful and useful at this point. And I do demonstrate in in my videos on YouTube many of the energy exercises that I offer or teach in the book. So it's a good way to get a visual demonstration of what I'm talking about. And I hope they'll pick up the book and enjoy it and share it with friends, because I believe that the more we all take healing into our own hands and learn to participate in our own well-being, the healthier we're all going to be.
Well, Ellen, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been lovely speaking with you.
Well, thank you, Ellen. It's been such an honor to spend this time with you, and of course, to talk about your new book, The Language Your Body Speaks. The Language Your Body Speaks is available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and all indie retailers, and of course, you can get it on Kindle. You can also visit Ellen at her website at ellen-meredith.com for more information, and she's got some great videos there. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I would like to thank everyone for tuning in. You're listening to Moments with Marianne. And remember, make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just what moment will change your life forever. Moments with Marianne airs every Friday and Saturday at 5 p.m. Pacific and 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.